So you talk about some of the tools that we're using to do that. And one of the tools, Dr. Bob, that's becoming so popular is the concept of genomics. It's everywhere in our business. It has been, and there are different approaches. So we attack that a little different inside the IGS eval than maybe some different evaluations in terms of how we maximize the accuracy of prediction that we incorporate from those panels. Could you maybe delve into that just a little bit?
Sure. So I think one of the real strengths of the IGS evaluation is the implementation of the Bolt software that uses a genetic evaluation model that, as you say, leverages the data maybe more completely than some other breeds do. And the way they do that is really twofold. It's one, doing a better job modeling the relationships between individual animals and their grandparents. So if you remember if we think about a traditional paper pedigree, we assume that all the animals are related 1/4 or 25% to each of their grandparents. But we know through the genetic assortment that happens across generations that that's not always true. In fact, it ranges from 0 to half. And so being able to construct a relationship structure in the data that more precisely aligned with the inheritance of genetic material allows us to do a better job calculating EPDs. That part makes sense. The other part that the Bolt model and IGS uses is a marker effects model. So we not only do a better job modeling the pedigree, but we also go through the data and find specific markers in the data that are aligned with individual traits that have large effects or larger effects on those traits. So somewhere around 1,500 to 2,500 markers per trait off the 50K panel are used in the prediction of the genetic merit of individuals for those various traits. And so we use the genomic data kind of in that sort of twofold approach, doing a better job modeling pedigree and then modeling direct effect of those markers on individual traits.
There's something else that we ought to mention here, Chip, as we talk about just the benefit to the individual breeds, and that is the fact that the affordability of the entire system. We have a lot of small and medium-sized breeds within IGS, and really that's what most of us are. Some are larger, but we have a lot of just medium-sized breeds and some smaller ones. So, but yet by collaborating, we can afford the best scientists and really the best science available for genetic evaluation. That in itself is very powerful for the individual breed member.
Well, and to pull on that just a second more, Tom, and it kind of dovetails from what Dr. Bob threw out, is we talk about sharing the data, and we do, but you actually touched into something I think is crucial. We share a lot of sweat equity and mind power together well, right? It's not just putting the numbers in a magic box and some individual pulls it together. We've got folks from each population, each association intimately involved on a regular basis. And so I don't know your perspective on that, but I think that's a level of collaboration that shows we're all in, right? We're buying into this deal when we have personnel working cross-cultural.
Absolutely.
And I think, Chip, one of the points here too is to Tom's is that the amount of intellectual capacity around the evaluation, not only from breeds, but from academia and USDA, is substantial. And we, right or wrong, work in a world where there's a shortage of trained quantitative and molecular biologists working in beef cattle genetics, and so sharing those resources and leveraging them in a really concerted and focused effort helps us all individually make more progress because we've collaborated.
You actually bumped pretty close to this a second ago, but I want to come back to this. For those associations who have watched what IGS has become, and maybe they're at this point they're not a direct player in IGS, but maybe they've been considering, should a multi-breed be important or be relevant for them? What would you suggest to those folks who are kind of kicking the tire, as it were?
I would say keep kicking the tires and really understand how they might fit into our processes at IGS. And I think it's the direction things are going, so it's going to be harder and harder for small, especially small and medium-sized breeds, maybe even large breeds, to stay outside of these collaborative genetic evaluations because there's just so much more data there. And we are, as we've already discussed, we live in a crossbreeding world. And so how their genetics perform on that level playing field when all EPDs are coming from the same source is becoming more and more important. And certainly it's easier, as we've said, for the commercial customer to understand. I think the other thing is The science we've mentioned, the depth of the science, the strength of the team, and the affordability of that to all is pretty hard to ignore, as opposed to for an individual breed association to get even halfway close to doing much of that on a single breed basis, pretty hard to do.
Your friends actually have to collect that data, right? We get to talk about it. You got to find a way to get it to us. What are some tips you've had, either your experience doing this on the other side of the table or experiences you see now or successful measures to help incentivize that data capture?
I think the first answer to it is that you're either a professional seed stock producer and you collect all the data, or you're not a professional seed stock producer because you don't collect the data and you don't assimilate it right, present it right, send it in correctly in the right contemporary groups to where it has value. That's the first piece of incentive, is you're either in this business or you're not in the business. But some of the things that the association has done, which I think have been really good, particularly maybe this isn't quite data submission, but it's tissue submission with the cow herd roundup and now the calf crop roundup, that's what you call the new program. Those things have been phenomenal as far as encouraging people to go ahead, take that extra step, and invest what is a substantial amount of money in the future of their businesses and ultimately the future of their customers' businesses and their customers' businesses. Those things have been really, really good.